Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to the Lord of the Rings, the adventure card game. Once again, we're starting in the middle, or at the end of a quest. So here we are, trying to get Radagast's will up to 50, and weirdly, it says 22 of 50 here, when it clearly says, like, 41 of 50 here, and I definitely think it's closer to 41 and 50. You still have the problem of this kicking in and doing 5 to 7 progress removal, and this kicking in to do double that. So we need 9 fury or power. We have 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 2 is 7, 8, 9 on the field right now. Is anything about to die? Possibly this, so let's attack with this. Now, did I do anything specific to change the outcome here? Not really. It definitely feels very luck-based. And as far as what you can pull off, I've been trying to get enough resources to play Gandalf. But I don't have that, so the hope here is that we can get to 49 and play this, and then nothing else can attack. And get to 50. And that clears the campaign.
The battle was
and wins.
A servant of light, one of darkness. At the height with your aid, Radagast clasps his hands together in a flash of light that erupts outlined to everyone in the gallery. You stand staggered a few moments as sight slowly returns to your eyes. The tower is as if in the midst of the brightest summer day. But Wizard and Nazgul alike have disappeared. The creatures that remain cower in what shadows they can find, giving you and your companions the chance to escape. You bolt through the same gate the prisoners used. You soon overtake and hurry them along to put as much distance from this evil place as possible. Somehow you know that the old wizard is alive, though likewise you're certain that the Nazgul survived as well. Still, as you make your way towards Ruskabor and beyond, you take comfort in having undermined their vile spell and made the region safe once more.
So, once again, this feels like this could just be a Hobbit story. None of this feels familiar as far as what story is being told to me. And it does seem weirdly stupid that they just flee for their lives when it seems like they would have had the upper hand at that point, and it would have made a lot of sense to either burn down the wizard's tower, unless it's magically fireproof, and as you're fleeing, just start fires, grab a torch, and light everything on fire on the way out, or occupy the tower and control it so that no evil forces can use it as a staging ground ever again. But instead they just flee, giving up land, giving up territory, leaving it for the next time a wizard, I assume an evil wizard, decides to show up, or Nazgul, whatever Nargul is. They didn't really spell out what a Nazgul is. I'm not even pronouncing it correct half the time. But yeah, we finished the quest, and again, I don't feel like I really did anything different.
He had her thralls and created a new source to threaten the lands around Mirkwood, but had pushed too fast. He must start anew. His servant would recover his power, though it might take time. Likewise, orc numbers are easily replenished. This was simply a minor setback on an inexorable march. He thought, glancing at the Palantir.
And from
surprising sources. It would take patience, but the necromancer was the soul of patience.
It's weird that you don't have quotation marks here when you're voicing that out loud. But I guess that's the difference between writing a book and writing an audiobook too, or writing some other form of media where you actually expect the voice actor to voice it. So we just have like this general name of the necromancer. It would kind of make some sense if the necromancer somehow brought back Sauron, and that wasn't like even the plan. Otherwise, it definitely feels like The Hobbit is just kind of retreading the exact same concepts as the Lord of the Rings concept. And weirdly about that, too, we have a wizard winning in a battle, whereas in the Lord of the Rings movie, which I said in the last recording I'm very unfamiliar with, I just don't know what happens to Gandalf in it at all. I guess he's possibly just fighting Sauron, or whatever that wizard called the White, the evil wizard there. And so there's like a wizard on wizard battle, but it kind of gets pushed to the side. And I don't know if anybody actually is fighting Sauron in a body form as the Hobbit is destroying the ring. I think maybe one of the human species is fighting against the Sauron as a body. But yeah, it kind of comes off giving the feeling that as soon as the Hobbit throws the ring into Mount Doom, that somehow destroys the last earthly essence of Sauron and stops him from resurrecting himself on Middle Earth's plane. But I'm very much making that up.
The rescued villagers return to their homes while you make your way to Ruskawal. The wizard is not in residence, but a fully repaired gate opens at your approach. And inside you find food, drink, and a warm fire waiting. A note left on the bench reads, Sorry, I missed you. But help yourself with my thanks. After all too brief a rest, you return without incident to Lothlorien to report all that you encountered. The Lord and Lady of the Golden Wood thank you for your service. They agree that for now at least, the dangers in Mirkwood have subsided. Still, the elves will be watching, ever vigilant in case darkness returns. You're invited to spend time with the elves to recover, though soon your hearts yearn to move on to other adventures. While the shadow is denied in Mirkwood for now, you have no doubt it still lurks elsewhere. Watching, waiting.
See, and here's the weirdness here, is this picture makes me think that throughout this entire campaign I've been playing as an elf character, but then the story implies you aren't really an elf character, so I don't know what kind of character you are supposed to be. And generally, my understanding of elves is that they really don't leave their forest, so it's pretty rare when one would choose to go on any kind of adventure or rescue party. Yeah, I guess elves are probably a lot like Vulcans in Star Trek. That's almost certainly the comparison to be made there. And in previous I said it would be interesting to see a direct attempt at comparing Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, to Star Wars. Well, it would be very easy to compare elements in Star Trek to Lord of the Rings, on top of which there's just a lot more content that is in the major canon of Star Trek versus Star Wars anyways. And then we just go into our quietness, which it might as well just be playing the same background fire sound effect. So we get 1,000 fellowship points, pathetic small amount. We get 2 copies of one card that doesn't look particularly that important. So as far as quests we could have done, we could have completed the quest with every hero at 50% or more. That seems to be the default quest for every default challenge for every quest. And then we avoided having more than one cries of alarm in play. I breezed through that section because in the section where you needed to escape and every turn that cries of alarm would spawn, there were 3 doors, one on the left, one on the middle, and one on the right. The first time I played through it, the one on the middle was the way out. So I focused all my attention in the very first turn on the one in the middle, and it was the way out. So either I got very lucky there and the door's positions are randomized, or the door positions are not randomized, which might be a smart move actually. And maybe there are tricks like that in some of the other quests where if you just keep on playing them very well over and over again, you'll figure out the tricks and be able to breeze through them. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the walkthrough that I saw for this game definitely comes from like a person who has probably played each quest 3, 4, 5 times through and just gained that experience and that familiarity with each quest and every little trick, that it starts to feel a lot easier. And certainly game developers can fall into that trap too, where by the time the game is ready to be released, they've played all the content so much that they're experts at it and no longer capable of seeing where it could be really difficult for somebody who's either not familiar with Lord of the Rings or not just familiar with how the game plays. We traveled from 2 steps back with freed prisoner at full. Man, I can't even read. And then we didn't complete the quest the same round that Razgard's cunning triggered. And then we defeated every door troll or complete the quest before Kamul Strikes triggers. All in all, that gives us a pathetic 600 fellowship points. And then we get 1500 for defeating it with those 3 heroes for the first time. Again, it would be so much better if these locks were just not here. It would make more sense to have the lock over the icon or have the lock in the corner to show that you haven't completed it, or even just get rid of the lock and just have the rewards in a grayscale shadow. But yeah, by just having a lock, I am not particularly motivated to want to do this quest a second time, or any of the quests a second time, and overall I really don't want to do any of the quests a second time. It's just too much work. And having completed that campaign, let's see what the campaign reward was. You get Radagast the Brown as a character, which, you know, he might be a little bit better than Sauron, but I don't think really. He summons a random animal and he has fleeting, and he's a 3/3/5, where I feel like for 5 resources instead of 4 you get Gandalf, who is fleeting, a 4/4/5, and gives you the option of 3 actions instead of just randomly summoning an animal. The 3 options being doing 3 damage, drawing 3 cards, or reducing 3 threat. Okay. Again, we don't know what the quest campaign will be for this. Let's start the Witch King's Grasp. Burglary and Bree. Same deck. I have no motivation around trying any other deck. Any failure at any point in this game is just going to add to frustration. And I'm not like rage quit inducing frustrated with the game, but that is in part because it is such a slow card game. If I was mashing buttons to play this game, and I was dying at the exact same percentage that I'm failing in this game. My fingers would be swollen and sore. I would be physically exhausted a little bit, not a lot. But that's the kind of high action interaction that can build up the rage to rage quit. Where it's a much more cool and calm and collected decision to quit playing a card game or a slower game like this. But that option definitely is on the table because, yeah, this is taking way too much time. If all of the single player content had been about 5 hours, I would have breezed through it so fast that any real struggle would have just come and gone and I would have forgotten about it. But when you spend 3 hours playing a card game and only at the end of the third hour succeeding.
Knob breathlessly ran into the common room, prancing pony. There's been another robbery, this time at the stables. Parliament ran out of the kitchen at the sound of Knob's voice. His words rushing out in a torrent.
You don't say. That's a bad business with black-hearted men around green. I do hope they're all right. No. But I forget he's off helping us, so he wouldn't be the stables, would he?
Gravelly spoke up into the room.
A robbery, say? Anything valuable taken?
This Bill Fernie was hanging about more and more these days, talking to all manner of odd hours. Parliament did not like the man. He was a cold. Bob bought it from one of those men that's always talking about the town odds and ends. Bob answered. He asked me to check on it. Bill surprised Parliament slapping his hand and shouting.
Duggery! I'll post a report for it myself.
So now it seems like we're almost doing a crime investigation mystery story, which seems like quite the diversion from fantasy warfare. And I guess Tolkien probably is notorious for wandering off and writing a lot of extra story and dialogue and descriptive text that's probably not that necessary. So I wouldn't put it past Tolkien to have an entire chapter around a robbery that leads to probably very little. Although there is also the possibility that this is an entirely made-up story, and in fact all of the campaigns that we've done, the two previous ones, have been entirely made-up stories built around the same time as The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and we just haven't had any real story around The Lord of the Rings. Inherently, there has been a trick that has been missed by the likes of book publishers. They have been notoriously bad about adopting to new technology. They've tried to fight ebooks forever, and eventually ebooks won the right to exist and are fairly popular amongst a percentage of book fans, but not super popular amongst all book fans. I would say there's probably, of the bibliophiles out there is probably at least 30% of them really want to have a physical book in their hands, and amongst that group there's probably even book fiends that love hardback books and don't like paperback books and things like that. But I would guess about 60% of people are willing to read a lot of books, at least some books on ebook formats, but they never have found the trick to go to the next step and say, alright, we're selling a video game based on the Lord of the Rings book. The Lord of the Rings probably has multiple copies in every single library on the planet. Like, let's just be honest about it. Every single school library, every single public library. There's really no need for a casual reader to buy a copy of The Lord of the Rings. A rich person will do it, and a person who wants to always own a copy of Lord of the Rings and get it in like a nice condition and a nice variation, because sometimes they make different prints with different lettering and pictures being added. I think there is something specific around adding illustrations to Lord of the Rings that makes the different versions unique. But the casual reader doesn't need to own that book. So selling it via ebook could get you more sales, and they do that, certainly. But selling it as part of a license in a video game could also get you more sales. So it's kind of crazy that it isn't just standard that a game based on a video game like Lord of the Rings doesn't include some way to actually read the story or get the audiobook. Here I could see the whole audiobook just being included as like free DLC, or ebooks just being included as free DLC. And you certainly could integrate it a lot more without the creators of the game having to really try and retell the same story over and over again, or have new voice actors voice it. But yeah, I've never seen a single game do that. Not a single one. Plenty of games based on different narratives. And then at a certain point it is somewhat understandable that if you were playing the high action game Shadow of Mordor, for instance, probably not that many people would actually sit through the story, the entirety of the Lord of the Rings, particularly if you're already familiar with it. Comic books notoriously also have that same problem, that while it may be a little crazy that a Spider-Man game doesn't it would be a little crazy if a Spider-Man game included all probably 10,000 issues of Spider-Man comics. It wouldn't be crazy for Spider-Man games to include a free trial to an online comic book reading website like Comixology, or at the very least include 12 to 36 issues of Spider-Man that are somewhat in line with what the game is telling. Anyways, I'm rambling. I also wanted to point out that when I clicked here, either I accidentally double-clicked, or the game glitched and it loaded a picture of a spider first.
After a long journey, you've arrived in Bree, the chief village of Breland, just before dark, and looking for a bit of bed for the night. Upon entering the town, you instead find closed shutters and side-eyed glances from folks who hurry past you on the way to their own beds. The setting sun casts dark shadows over the village square. In the distance, you hear the town gate being closed. From the darkness around you, hooded figures emerge, brandishing menacingly in their hands.
Let's see what valuables they got.
One of the brigands tells the other as they close a circle around you. You and your companions are not so easy pickings, though, as you put hands to your own weapons.
It's just weird for anything to take place in even a small village in the Lord of the Rings universe. And we have yet another very nicely animated field or game that really doesn't justify that existence. Okay. So we're supposed to defeat every bandit? Okay, Bilbo's cloak would take out 8 characters. Sauron's resources. guess meanwhile, we'll just play things on this one character. Oh, this is irritating. So yeah, not a lot to really say here, as we're trying to make it our way through this first run and just figure out what's gonna happen. It's irritating to say the least that it is the first run and that we know there will be a second. Let's see.
I'll be back, you'll see.
It's funny as I hear a dog barking and I can't really tell if it's in the game or if it's outside my house. I think it might be outside my house. These archers are going to prove themselves to be nightmares. It's just got a massive amount of resources. As long as this character's still alive, he'll give me more points. Let's see. Bilbo's cloak. They're just screwing with my character though. I don't have a way of saving herself here.
You show me the way up. I'll skin you.
So immediately I've lost. How could I have prevented this guy from losing? Maybe I needed to put a blocked character.
Find something.
Let's see. Yeah, you wouldn't want to activate that now.
Boss wants us to get back to the hideout.
Now this guy has block, so he will stop taking damage, at least. Random ally with guard. It's probably not a terrible time to do that.
Rise.
Let's see.
Let me ease your suffering.
Did he think he may have just stole Bilbo's cloak from the character?
We'll
The good news is, seems like we can turn this around. We'll go ahead and put Bilbo's cloak back on him, because I do kind of feel like that benefits you. And then give that guy an extra attack.
Don't mind me.
Well, what do we want to do? Probably have enough to just kill this. And if that's all we really need to do, we should just do it. We'll just use our power. And then we'll end the turn. And so we've set ourselves up nicely for whatever the next area will be. Strange item. So now we have this strange item artifact. Complete the goal for this location. Travel now for the looming threat. To avoid the looming threat. I don't even think you can do anything with that, so... Let's just set ourselves up nicely. And put a lot of things in defense and then travel. I could have also probably taken some power.
Dim light. You make out a notice to a wooden post.
Good folk of Bree. The robberies and what's not late cannot further be abided. I offer a reward for the return of all items gone missing. So I can get them to their rightful owners. See Fernie at the prancing pony.
You find the place quickly. A bustling inn in the centre of town. The proprietor, Barlam and Butterbur, directs you to a darkened corner where Bill Fernie sits, a tankard in his hands. He doesn't appear to be much, a nervous man with a shifty gaze. He tells you that men have been arriving in selling trinkets, only to have the same items stolen soon after.
No, strange bonds and bits, with not much value.
He says.
As an upright citizen of Bree, I feel it's my duty to get these items back to their rightful owners. I got money, I don't got muscle. See.
When you offer the item you recovered in the square, he smiles and tosses a few coins on the table.
So, this almost feels like a Sherlock Holmes story, particularly looking at this picture. But also it just feels completely disconnected from anything I would have thought would have ever happened in The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings.
The citizens of Bree thank for your assistance.
Bill tells you piously that you suspect sarcasm in his voice.
There's plenty more coin if you can find the rest.
You aren't interested in the money, but can smell that there's something more afoot at first notice. You might be able to help good folk continue to investigate.
Bob the stable was robbed the other day. You can visit the stables and ask him about it.
Bill informs you.
Or you can check out the abandoned man at the edge of town. There's something fish about that place.
So once again, we've been given a choice, whereas the paths seem to branch drastically by actions in almost every other case. We've been given one other choice way back in the tutorial, and they've just forgotten that gimmick. Well, it definitely seems like going to the village stable would be the easier path. The hope is going to the village stable doesn't just add an extra section and that you end up at the ramshackled manor regardless.
The boys gave Jed the stick because of his lanky squats. Still he'll come to life, just as the boys respected leadership. Even Ratchet made Stick his lieutenant, sending him to lead the boys on raids. Stick liked the responsibility, so when Ratchet told him to watch the stables, watch he did, though he and the boys got watching town sleep. Bob the Hob tended the stables, returned after dark. He'd be asleep long after as he did most nights. Stick at the stables many times. The rest of the evening passed uneventfully. Earlier, Stick had to shush as they shared a load of the drink with one another. But then the night eerily quiet. It was just past midnight, so a party of strange strangers approached the barn. Outside us, no doubt. That could be trouble.
Let's greet the newcomers, boys.
Stick whispered to the man around him.
Time to knock heads.
So yeah, you end up in a fight, but weren't you always going to do that?
Search the stable. With the lateness of the hour, it's silent. But
we're getting that split storytelling once again.
Suddenly, a low rum begins to sound from a pile of hay. You approach cautiously. The sound becomes a snort. The saw is a sleeping hobbit, just visible under the straw. He jumps with a start, visibly frightened by your intrusion.
Just me, Bob.
The young hobbit stammers out.
I work here in the stables with the horses.
He says, as if that wasn't already obvious. You tell Bob your mission to find the bandits and recover their stolen wares.
They stole my old nan.
He explains.
I was going to give it to her today when it came up missing. I bought it from a tall man up Archit Way.
His expression changes as he holds up a pointing finger.
That man, there.
You turn to see a tall, skinny man and several hooded companions with him.
What we have here?
He asks as they each pull a cudgel from their cloaks.
So yeah, no doubtly, every scenario ends up in a fight. That's the only way that this makes any sense. But speaking of sense, what doesn't make sense is the last campaign seemed to really have nothing to do with Sauron, and now we're playing against Sauron, but there's really no reason this would be Sauron, or that any of the looming threat or any of that would possibly integrate to just a small gang like this. Unless the general idea is that Sauron is just the evil in the hearts of all men, a devil type character. Which at some level I think that probably is true, but not that deep of a level. Gain 1 artifact after defeating the next bandit. Gain 1 artifact after defeating the next bandit. Gain 1 artifact. Okay. Gain 1 resource each time the bandit is. I don't understand why we're keeping the cards, though. You must make room to add this character to your party. Select an ally to replace. Well, that sucks. But that's how that's gonna go. Then if we kill this, would we trigger that effect?
Not in stables.
So we have Bob. At the end, he resolves 1 random hazards. Falling tackle, hidden hoe, panicky pony. Defeat bandit enemies until you recover 2 stolen artifact cards in this location and 1 bandit enters play. Alright, well. So we really can't do too much here. We can activate that. And then we could kind of play this.
We'll teach you a lesson.
Just use this power to charge up some more power. We'll have to just do that a lot, I guess. Meanwhile, I guess you want to kill this. Then we'll go ahead and heal this up. Wow, so we have to discard a card. We'll get rid of Bilbo's cloak. And the bandits are just shadows, so seems like they're not spending a lot of effort on making things nicely animated.
Stick your nose somewhere else.
There's another item we can collect. So let's just kill this bandit. I don't know if these are actually bandits or cut purses. I guess technically they might just be cut purses. Yeah, and I see no reason to go further. We could potentially try to end up with one more artifact, but unless you need 4 artifacts to win, seems like that's kind of crazy. But you know what? We've got so much safety here. Let's just kill this thing. And we will end the phase. And then that'll let us here we have the looming threat of Sauron. The main goal here is just to take our power and activate this and then kill one of these guys. And so we'll just power up our power. We will almost certainly lose this character when we're done. Okay. And then hit that, and and hit that.
Come on, again.
Heal that character back up. And yeah, there's nothing else we can do, so we'll just have to end the phase. And the move here is to hope to get that other artifact. But I guess we didn't. Alright. So he's not gonna spawn any other bandits. So I have to travel. Maybe we'll have some bandits in the next recording, in the next area. And that effect will still be enabled.
One last time before dividing it up in piles to give to the boys. They had done well. It had been his idea to sell the items they had acquired on the Barrow Downs, and his idea to steal them back again one soul, so they could do it again in the town. This was his best scheme yet. To keep his gang coin. Orders in the Barrow Downs to turn in best bits. But Ratchet, he and the boys were only allowed to trinket sell themselves. He was too greedy to let that go on. So he gathered the fellas he considered most like-minded and stole away the best he could take from the camp. On the road, he had to be a natural leader. So the boys made him boss of their own gang. There he came up with a scheme to flee people of Bree, and soon he'd do the same to folks in Archstad. Allowed creeps outside snapped task. He signaled to the boys. Let's have a see.
All this comes off very British, which is not super surprising since Tolkien, I'm pretty sure, is British. Now what would be interesting is if these trinkets that they find in Barrow Downs turn out to be some kind of magical items that people didn't realize had more of an importance to. Otherwise, this story is just a very simplistic story of people finding something shiny, selling it, then stealing it back.
Your fellowship arrives outside what appears to be an abandoned manor house. It seemed far better days. You make out a dim light from inside, giving hints that the house is abandoned as it first appears. Slowly, carefully, you make your way onto the wooden stair to the main entrance. As you reach for the door, one of your party steps on timber with a loud creak. Everyone sees as you look at one another, knowing that you are now discovered. Sure enough. From within the house comes a set of voices. Then the forms of men clad in hoods come bursting forth from all around. Their leader, a large man with his face in shadow, emerges with a laugh.
Nobody's home. See.
They clearly want you to leave, but you clearly came here for answers. Each of them carries a club or cudgel, brandished with hands with ill-gotten gems. These are the men you've been looking for.
So it is a little interesting that it's humans, and hobbits working together. But it definitely does seem like if I had just jumped to the abandoned mansion first, I would have been able to skip the stable section. That being said, this is not the final encounter. Defeat bandit enemies until you've recovered 2 stolen artifacts cards from this location. End 1 bandit enters play, which is funny because I was ending and I wasn't getting bandits entering from play. That's 1 down. Which lets me just heal that back up, I guess. And here, we're just constantly running out of cards. Spaces. probably want to save this minion till later. Go ahead and activate this power. If anything, I guess what's happening here is they're intentionally filling up my hand with garbage cards. Let's see. Let's get rid of that. Ratchet escapes. Complete the goal for this location. Travel now to avoid the looming threat. Okay, before I do anything else though, I would like to pull out somebody. And put him on the field.
Maybe later.
And it probably wouldn't hurt me to do this or do this and set up for the next turn and now travel.
Bill Fern was worried. His contacts pushing him to find the missing stolen barrow-downs camp. He had no idea why they wanted these specific items or what they would be used for. But experience had taught his contacts were not the kind of people you crossed lightly. That stupid Ratchet was behind all this. He just knew it. But he didn't have the muscle to take on the gang directly. That's when he came up with a reward idea. He only needed the items list back. No more, no less. So, if he could get them back, lots of few or get some local battlefield heads allowed him to take them directly. So much better. He had friends who would deal with Ratchet, but first he needed to get the items back on the road to the barrow downs. Otherwise, they'd send someone else to take care of things, and that would be the end of old Fernie. Bill wasn't about to let that happen.
Having recovered
So there is some
items, you make
twist.
your way back to the pony.
Not really the biggest twist. It's pretty obvious that Bill was a bad guy.
I don't want no trouble in my inn.
He tells them defiantly, though the tremble in his chin betrays his fear.
Stay out if you know what's good for you in tea.
One of the men snarls.
Bernie has some explaining to do. Setting the whole town after us.
Fernie swallows hard, but then notices your arrival.
My associate!
He smiles a reptilian grin as he waves his arm to indicate your group.
Perhaps you shake this up with them.
The men turn. As patrons in the bar divide into folks who wish to hide, and those looking for a good excuse for a brawl. Someone smashes a bottle, and pandemonium ensues.
So yeah, the only thing I thought is maybe that Bill Fernie here was actually the leader of the gang, and he was sending people who thought they could take on the gang to their death. So the protagonist of the story would go potentially and fight the gang, lose to the gang, be robbed after being beaten up or killed by the gang, and then you would have more resources. The gang would have more things they could then potentially loot. Battle of Wills. Incredibly tiny text here. I have no idea what this is going to be. But defeat one minion or deal 3 damage to one villain. So you have these drunken bartenders. They're return every artifact and defeat Rabble Rouser, which is this character. Which I think we can do that pretty easily, and then returning the items I think probably clears your field. Defeat every drunken brawler. I think that's probably what we want to do first. Meanwhile, I guess we'll start by just putting this in defense mode. And we want this in defense mode in particular because as soon as this dies, its effect would be to kill this character. Seems like you could kind of play this, but not really. I wonder if this is a case where something always has guard. So we've got to figure out a system around that.
You've wandered into some trouble.
So I'm just playing things as I would generally expect them they should be played. Well, I definitely don't want to draw 3 cards, but I can see the idea of reducing the threat by 3. Get rid of the drunken peasants. That creates a very different situation. Apparently this doesn't do anything, so we'll do that instead. Guess we do that, and we'll go ahead and get rid of the character with fleeting. We don't even have anybody to yeah, we don't have anybody else to do anything with, so for the heal. See who we might empower with unexpected courage. I guess this one. Just end the phase there. Weird thing here is we could deal 1 damage to 1 minion. Now we've got more story that's introducing another character, so now we've got to get rid of somebody.
Will you be anything?
Don't mess with us.
What does this character do? Nothing really. Nothing all that special, at least. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. 3 damage to a villain, or defeat 1 minion. Is a villain, I guess, would be this guy. Now to return every artifact, we can't just attack that. I think we have to kill these bandits. Although weirdly, that's not moving it forward. Oh, do I just have to straight up play the cards? Oh, well then, that seems weird. It seems like your goal should be to have as few possible cards as possible by the time you get to this point. Guess you have to just attack this so he loses guard. And then the goal is to kill things that can hurt you. This one attack can kind of hurt you. Do I want to do anything else? So I just need more resources to play these cards, and I could have won earlier by simply playing the cards. Although, doesn't seem like it matters. Seems like you just win if you do this. And then the guy runs away to darkness, and your quest is complete, and that was considerably easier than the last quest in the last campaign, in the previous campaign.
He rises from behind the bar. Knob clutched in one arm protectively, and a thick wooden club in the other.
He's run off! If you want a reward, you need to track it down to get it.
Before you can respond, the front door open, ringing a small bell set above it. The tall man with the ramshackle manner comes in, hands over a large gash across his belly, his skin as moonlight. He looks first to Barliman, and then to you and your companions, before falling to the ground, stone dead.
Murder!
Gasps Barliman as he stands over the body.
So, was this the bad guy that was murdered here, or was this a good guy that was murdered? The tall man you fought at the Ramshackle Manor comes in. So yeah. Bill Fernie killed another bad guy. Alright, and then I guess this is how the story continues and escalates from just finding stolen goods and beating up a gang to finding a murderer and finding out whatever the weirdness around the artifacts are. So as far as the special quest here, it was complete the quest with every hero in play, easy enough. Complete the village stable with Bob in play. Complete quest with 0 junk cards in your hand, and I guess the artifacts are considered junk cards. and then avoid having any pickpocket units trigger fleeting. We apparently did not activate that, and then defeat the rabble rousers before returning the items resolves. That got us 800 more fellowship points, and then we get 1500 fellowship points, which, yeah, it's gonna barely have us in the long run have just 50,000 points. Yeah. It doesn't really feel like the numbers line up quite right. If you were to win 3 times with every single quest in the solo campaign, it feels like you would have slightly, like, no, it's maybe somewhere around 100,000 fellowship points short. And I just don't know where you would get that without just replaying it. I also unlocked these cards for whatever that's worth. And that unlocks Murder Most Foul. Foul, spelled correctly, not as in a bird, F-O-W-L. So, alright. That was nice that was easy, and we may have a little bit of ease until we get to the second to last quest or the last quest, or we might just breeze through the whole thing. Still not really sure any of this story is happening in the timeline of The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. I couldn't possibly tell. It seems like, particularly in this case, this story is almost completely made up whole cloth and wasn't even written by Tolkien, is the feeling I'm getting. But maybe it was. Who knows? Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me even further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.